Wake up, NHL fans. It is Wednesday, and we've got a loaded morning cup of hockey for you today. We're going to be joined by Shane Pinto from the Ottawa Senators off the hop. We're going to talk about the Rangers' loss last night in San Jose, which had a controversial non-call in overtime. Then we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning being all the way back. And then to finish it off today, we're going to talk about if NHL goalies are underpaid, because there's been a lot of debate on social media as of the last couple of days. But before we get into that, alongside Colby Cohen, I'm Jonny Lazarus. Colby, what's going on? I can't stop laughing this morning. I'm in a great mood.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So ruin it for me. Ruin it.
We're gonna get Shane Pinto on here in the next couple of minutes, and obviously something that I'm looking forward to. He's been, the talk of the town as of late. He's a guy that has certainly been in the news this season for unrelated issues. So it'll be a good opportunity to get to have a conversation with him and see what he's been up to and kind of how the whole thing went down. So, I'm really looking forward to that, Jonny. And a little cherry on the top, obviously scores a good, a big goal for his team last night. I'm sure everybody saw that. It was all over social media. The reactions were pretty awesome from his teammates. So I'll have to give you credit for once and even give you credit publicly because, you know Shane. You guys are both Long Island boys, and you asked him to come on, and he was nice enough to agree. So now let's just hope he doesn't stand us up, and then you look like an idiot.
Yeah, that'd be pretty embarrassing. But I've been pulling the weight on this show a lot lately, just getting guests left and right. Colby's sitting there in his home in his basement, just watching Carlos Alcaraz. And Shane actually did text me. I keep joining, and it keeps doing this. There's an error, so let's try to fix that. Let me send him the link one more time, or I'll get our producer on it. But Colby, Ottawa Senators 4-1-1 in their last 6. Are they all the way back?
You're such an idiot about this situation. And while I am excited to have Shane on, I don't believe that they are all back. And if he were already on, I would say the same thing. I think the Ottawa Senators played themselves out of this thing a long time ago. I'm not exactly expecting the St. Louis Blues second half comeback and all the way to a Stanley Cup championship coming out of Ottawa, just based on the fact that, I just don't think that they have the group right now. I don't think that they have the right coach in place right now. I think there's just been too much turmoil around the organization. But listen, you have a hockey fan you have a hockey team in the Canadian market. I think you want to see them do well. I think we all know the passion for hockey fans that come out of the city of Canada, no matter which city that you're in. So look, I think it's always good to have good Canadian teams and Canadian teams that are involved in the playoff picture in the cup hunt. I obviously wouldn't put Ottawa in that grouping. Well, that was a pretty good voice crack by me, but like I said, I know that they're 4-1-1 over their last 6 games. They are having a little bit of success. I always root for Claude Giroux. I got to cover the Flyers and do TV for them in Philly in some of the final seasons that he played there, and just being around the city for a long time. He's an easy guy to root for. So, I don't think they're back. I think you're going to continue to die on that hill consistently on social media because you're just doing it to be an idiot. But ultimately, do you think that they're coming back?
I don't think they're going to come back, but I still think they'll be competitive. I don't think they're going to stay this bad for the rest of the year. There's a lot of hockey to be played. I think they'll make a little bit of noise and go on, I could see them going on 10-2-1 kind of run or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Just
look, they also have
a little bit.
They have some interesting decisions to make. I mean, we had Frank on our show yesterday talking about Jacob Chychrun. I mean, look, I feel like every season the NHL plays, we talk about Jacob Chychrun being traded for how many years now? It's like one of the favorite topics of the NHL every season, and it so rarely happens. And I'm pretty sure he came out yesterday and kind of, slammed the trade rumors that maybe he wasn't happy or that the shininess of playing in your hometown has worn off. But I mean, they do have pieces. Look at Sanderson. I mean, he's a guy who is going to be up for the Norris Trophy at some point over the next couple of seasons. Like, he is certainly that talented of a guy, and you can see him kind of working into that true elite number one defenseman. And look, they just got Shane Pinto back. That obviously is a huge help to their lineup in Ottawa. And then, there's certainly, some guys who like Giroux, those veteran pieces that they've put around them. So I think that's probably why people thought they would be better this season, obviously. And it hasn't quite happened yet, Johnny. So, we'll kind of keep an eye on this thing, but I don't think, like you think, that they're going to have some, miraculous turnaround.
Well, also just to kind of be specific about the Jacob Chikrin thing, he said it's fine to talk about his name, whatever. He understands how that works. But the rumor that he was no longer enjoying being in Ottawa, that's where he said, I think it's ridiculous. So he just wanted to put that to bed, that he's like unhappy, which he's not. So I think that's what all the news and the hoopla was about yesterday with Jacob Chikrin. So we'll put that one to rest. But I also do want to read some stats that I got from Ross Leviton from the Locked On Senators podcast, who DM'd me just about Shane Pinto this morning. He said the Sens are 35-5 all time when Shane Pinto gets a point, and they're 18-8-1 when all of Stützle, Norris, Pinto play in the same game. It's insane. They've only played 27 games together. Pinto is legit an X factor. It's insane. So they're 2-0 right now with Pinto back in the lineup, but we are having some technical issues right now. Shane is texting us trying to get on here, so we're not
Johnny,
trying to hold you guys up.
It looks like we have to take a quick break here, and reset our streaming platform, and then we will rejoin, let's say in the next 30 seconds to a minute, hopefully, and get this going again, because there's some sort of issue, I guess, with the link that we have sent Shane. So we're going to just step aside here for the next, let's say, 30 to 60 seconds. We'll be right back, and we should be right back with Shane Pinto. So stay tuned here. Sorry, we're working on it, and we'll see you soon here in a second.
Welcome back to Morning Cup of Hockey. We're still working on getting Shane in here. Just, he's in the parking lot right now getting ready for practice. So there's some phone issues with the link and everything, but we're going to do our best to get him on here. Didn't mean to tease that for everybody. We are texting him right now, so hopefully it gets figured out. We are not the tech people here. He's a hockey player. He scores goals, and hopefully he comes on soon. But do you want to move on to the Sharks Rangers while we wait for Shane, Colby, or just kind of stick to the Ottawa Senators here?
Listen, I think that's your game to talk about. I know you were up late watching that West Coast game. I woke up and had about 17 text messages from you about that hockey game. But look, the Rangers have been trending in the wrong direction here for a while. I mean, this has been not just a 2-week span. You're watching them every single night. I don't. What's going wrong right now in New York? What is with this whole downturn? I guess you would say, of this team that looked like they were really the best team in the NHL for a while.
Well, before we even started the show today, there was a comment in the chat from Benny Marlowe that said "Fire Laviolette." So I don't think that's the answer. Pierre Laviolette's done a great job, but this team right now, what happened from the beginning of the year to where we currently sit, the Rangers in the first 20 games, they were defending well, they were tight on their checks, they were getting saves, and the offense was scoring goals. Right now, the offense is generating chances, they're not scoring, and the D zone is so loose that they're leaving the goalie out to dry constantly. But then again, they're not getting the saves. Igor Shesterkin has shown time and time again in his career that he can step up and make the saves when the team needs it, even make the saves that he probably shouldn't make. But over the last, 15, 20 games, it seems like every puck that he should be stopping is going in. And granted, there's been, maybe 1 to 3 games where he stood on his head. Like he played well against the Kraken, played well against the Capitals, but these aren't teams that have such offensive firepower that are really that threatening. So it's like this weird situation where the Rangers were so consistent in the beginning of the year. You knew exactly what you were going to get every single night. You knew what you were going to get from the effort. You knew what you were going to get from Panarin and Lafreniere and Trocheck. And now you have no idea what team is going to show up. This West Coast trip was terrible. Just really deflating, past few weeks, even maybe months for the New York Rangers after what felt like a very promising start to the season.
Well, look, Andrew Raycroft was on here a week or two ago talking about goaltending being more situational and almost less about the individual. We know Shesterkin is a good goaltender. So, what kind of situations is he facing? Like, I mean, how careless have they been with the puck? Is he, is there too much pressure being put on him? Is that catching up to him? Do the Rangers need to be splitting more of the action between him and Jonathan Quick and giving him, more rest days? Maybe. I don't really know. I mean, look, this is why you have to get out to a good start and why you have to be in a playoff position come Thanksgiving, because chances are you could run through an issue like this, and the Rangers have been able to weather it, stay in the top 3 in the Metro. But again, you shouldn't be giving up a point to the San Jose Sharks. Now we've seen, coaches lose their job for giving up points to San Jose and Chicago this year. So seems like there's some problems in New York, some things that they may ultimately need to address come trade deadline. Because look, as a team, you don't want to peak in, November, December, January. Like, now is when you want to start that climb uphill, Johnny. Now is when you want to start seeing your team continue to improve and get better in areas late in games and holding leads and managing the puck. You almost have to start kind of having your eyes on playoff hockey. We're less than 90 days out from the end of the season. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe. I think I saw something like 87 days until the end of the season.
Wow.
It's really, it's time to start trending in the right direction. You don't have to be like the Oilers and win 4, go on the insane heater that they're on. But I don't know, man. I think the Rangers are playing some uninspired hockey. I think some of their top end players clearly need to be better. And
I mean, Panarin's been amazing, but
I understand that, but
Zibanejad,
I mean,
Kreider, those guys.
exactly. They need to, they need to pull this team out of it. You can't expect your fourth line, your bottom players to pull you out of a stretch where your team is playing ugly. I mean, they are. They're playing ugly hockey. And we've seen some powerful quotes from some coaches over the last couple of days, whether it was Lane Lambert before he got fired, whether it was Bruce Cassidy the other day saying, they're playing a little bit disrespectful, like it's beer league. Well, now you're seeing the Rangers kind of play that way. They really are. I mean, the turnovers at the blue lines, the hope plays that they're making, the way they're defending. Listen, defending's a mentality, Johnny. So I don't know. I think there's trouble in New York, and it seems to be getting worse.
Well, here's what I want to ask you also, because you're a defenseman, I'm a forward. I think sometimes we have different perspectives on things, but the Rangers are the worst team in the NHL against the rush, and a lot of people are blaming the defense for that. I think a lot of it has to do with the forwards getting back. The Rangers aren't a quick enough team to risk a lot offensively and then get back defensively, and it's costing them with the odd man rushes against, and that's a huge reason why they're losing games too, because teams continue to score on the rush. So it's been a lot of blame toward the decor and toward the blue line, but I think a lot of it really hinders on the forwards getting back. And Thomas Hickey, a friend of the show who came on the other day, actually had a really good breakdown of how important the F3 is. And maybe that's something that the Rangers have to focus on more too, is just having a better F3 and staying above the puck.
Yeah, look, Peter Laviolette is an experienced guy. I got to think he knows the right levers to pull. I know recently, had to sit Nick Bonino down, one of their, sole guys. But the work is not, they've got their work cut out for them in New York. I really do. I think there's problems. I really do. I think this has become more than a slump, and it's become a trend for them. So I think they're one of these teams like Vegas, like LA, that had great starts to the season, and you wouldn't think that these were the same teams that we saw a couple of months ago. So we'll see what happens, Johnny. I know you'll be watching them incredibly close. It's a team you cover pretty much consistently. But ultimately, I think the All-Star break and the bye week is probably coming at the right time for the New York Rangers.
Well, also there's a controversy last night too in the game, and I just want to address this. Shane just texted us. We're gonna have to reschedule with Shane Pinto. Technical difficulties here, and he's got to head into the rink for a meeting. So we're really sorry about this. It's just unfortunate that these things happen. But again, Shane is a good friend of the show. He wanted to do this. He's texting us, and we will get him back on. So sorry, Senators fans, if you're tuning in and you wanted to hear from Shane. Unfortunately, these things happen.
I promise you, we're disappointed too. I've never met Shane before. I was really looking forward to talking to him and asking him some of these questions. So I share I think we all share your disappointment right now. So we do apologize.
Yeah, I'm pretty bummed myself, but the Ranger game last night, the Sharks, and we're not going to talk too much about this game, but there was a lot of controversy in overtime. Jan Rutta, the defenseman, sets three picks in 3-on-3 overtime. And listen, we've seen a lot of picks be set in the NHL before. One that I think of is John Tavares in Game 7 against Tampa Bay Lightning that gets called back, and the Leafs, could have gone on to win that game. It would have been the tying goal, I believe, at the time. And we've seen a lot of picks get called, picks get non-called, but let's just watch the overtime goal last night and keep an eye on 84 in Teal, who hops off the bench right now after this cutback. His first pick is right there on Zibanejad, totally clean, but watch this one. Totally steps in the way of Alexis Lafreniere, and then he comes across the entire ice and sets another pick on Mika Zibanejad, who loses his stick. He goes after it. Then Rutta's wide open for the backdoor pass to set up the overtime winning goal. I mean, listen, maybe I'm a biased Ranger fan here, Colby, but is that not a ridiculous sequence of setting picks? I mean, you can hold your ground, you can own your ice, but this is just going out of the way to interfere. Am I crazy here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the first one, he kind of just comes off and holds his lane and it's more of a little bit of a skating in the same way and just kind of holding your ice. I thought the second one was I mean
the puck's already past him. Like, what are you doing there?
Especially 3-on-3, there's a lot of ice, right? I'm surprised that none of these were called. I think this one where he comes across the ice and runs into him and takes his stick again, like, it is a little bit surprising. And then it's funny, he Jan
Sets up the
Ruda,
overtime winner.
guy who's not really known for his offense, you know, makes a pretty heady play there on that backdoor pass. So, couple of blown calls there in overtime. But what are the Rangers doing letting the San Jose Sharks get to overtime anyway? It's you gotta put teams like that away.
Well, also, I got to ask you because there was a lot of blame last night on Mika Zibanejad for the overtime goal against. Colby's tuning into the Alcaraz match right now. I can see it on his face.
Zverev won.
Oh, no, it's over?
Yeah,
No way.
Zverev won.
We're big tennis people on here, so Colby and I like to talk tennis every now and then, the Australian Open going on. But Mika Zibanejad got a lot of blame for that overtime winning goal against because he gets interfered with. He then goes after his stick. And I know we've kind of talked about it, you and I, about players losing their stick in the D zone. Sometimes, this scenario is a little bit different. If a stick breaks, I think you always go to the bench and grab it. I don't care if it takes 7 to 10 seconds. It takes you out of the play. Go grab your stick. You're better off defending with a stick in your hands than without one. And that's what Mika Zibanejad's probably thinking in his mind. I can't defend 3-on-3 without a stick because then it's basically a 3-on-2, which it essentially was. But I still think he makes the right read there as opposed to just sitting back and defending with no stick. I don't think the result is really going to change that much.
Yeah, look, I think especially on a penalty kill when a guy breaks his stick or a goalie when a goalie loses his stick, I don't know why we rush to give a goaltender a player stick. Goaltender can play without a stick. I know it's not ideal, but I think it's less ideal for a player not to have a stick, especially with how important stick positioning has become in the NHL and taking away passing lanes. So, 3-on-3, kind of all bets are off. I tell Zibanejad he needs to hold on to his stick there. You can't let a guy kind of take your stick out of your hands like that. And, we saw why. So, again, Rangers are in trouble. Not a pretty way to finish. I'm sure Lavi, had a lot to say about that. Was probably not real happy. I was not up that late. As you know, I know you were watching it, but one game I did watch last night, Jonny, was the Philly Tampa game. And look, man, the Lightning are starting to play good hockey. They really are. I mean, they're starting to get a lot of saves from their star goaltender. The premier star goaltender in the NHL. I mean, I guess Connor Hellebuck and Thatcher Demko certainly belong in that conversation as well. But the multi-dimensional Tampa Bay Lightning are starting to look like their old selves. Braden Point, never disappoints. Kucherov had 3 and 1 last night. He reached 80 points already.
Insane. 47 games, 80 points.
Yeah, I mean, he gets himself onto a list with guys like McDavid, Crosby, fewest games to reach 80 points. Gretzky's on the list, Lemieux's on the list. So, that's pretty elite company right there. And I think the Lightning, we're talking about teams that are trending the wrong way. I think the Lightning are a team that Jonny seems to be trending the right way.
Yeah, and they were a team that everyone was, kind of curious about this year, including me. I counted them out when Vasilevsky went down and he missed 2 months of the season due to surgery. But, I think Nikita Kucherov, we've talked about the MVP a little bit on here with Mike Rupp last week, but Nikita Kucherov right now has to be running away with it. And I think, what impresses me most about Kucherov is that, sure, he's a great player on the power play and 5-on-4, but this guy's got 44 even strength points. Like, he's right there with Nathan McKinnon. McKinnon has 48. And, a lot of people want to talk about how some of these guys are just so dynamic and so elite on the power play and they don't really produce as much at 5-on-5, but Kucherov does it all. Like he is such a fun player to watch. And I don't think he ever gets talked about enough in the regular season. We always talk about him in the playoff time when the Lightning go on a run, but I can't say he's underrated because that'd be a ridiculous comment, but like he is not talked about nearly enough. Like even years prior to this year, what he's doing.
Well, I think one of the reasons is you don't see Tampa Bay on ABC on Sundays all that often or Saturdays. You see the Rangers, you see the Bruins, you see the Northeast markets a little more, Jonny. So that's probably one of the reasons, or maybe. But he's dragged his team along this year when they weren't playing well. He's kept his team around the playoffs when they didn't have Vasilevsky. I've said at times I thought Braden Point has been their best player over the last couple of years, but that hasn't been the case this year. Kucherov has been their best player, and I'm not sure there's a player in the NHL, look, Patrick Kane's Kane's on the back nine of his career. Obviously, I think that's a safe and fair assumption to make. But other than, front nine Patrick Kane, how many guys have the poise around the net in the high danger areas that Kucherov does? I mean, when he works the flank or he's around the hash marks, his ability to fake a shot and just draw attention and then lay one across or put one into Stamkos or point, it's incredible. Like, he is cold-blooded around the net, not just as a shooter, but as an elite passer. I mean, I've only ever really felt like Patrick Kane could do those types of things on the half wall or the flank of the power play would probably be a better way to describe it, at the top of that, the top side of that umbrella. So he's dragging that team along. I say Vasilevsky, who's been a little bit up and down since he came back, finding his game. I think that's fair. Has started to solidify his play. His last 8 starts, he's a 906, 943, 909, 950, 900, 909. One blip against Boston with a 769, and then a 957 against Minnesota. So, he's been, really, really solid now for 8 games that he's played, his last 8 starts. And I think that's where that goalie conversation starts to creep in, Johnny. And you talk about elite goaltenders in the NHL. Winnipeg has one. And I'm like true elites. There's some different categories in how good these guys are. But with Vasilevsky back on the top of his game, I'm going to go ahead to you and say, Johnny, I see this team, winning playoff rounds and pushing and making a run when he's playing this game. Do you see that out of this team?
I don't know. I don't think their bottom 6 is as strong as it was when they won those cups. I mean, even their top 6 right now, like, I don't think it's a scary roster. They
So
have some names.
Stamkos, Point, Kucherov, Sorelli,
I see better. I
Hedman,
mean, I see better top 6s
Sergachev.
out there though. There's better teams. There are, on paper at least. Like, you can't discredit what Tampa's done. On the ice. Obviously, the games are played on the ice, but you look on paper. You consider Tampa Bay like a top 7 team in the NHL on paper?
I didn't say I consider them a top 7 team. I didn't even say I consider them a Stanley Cup contender. I said I can
Mhm.
see them winning rounds in the playoffs. To me, they don't look like a team that's going to limp into the playoffs in a wild card position and lose in the first round. This looks like a team that would probably knock out the Toronto Maple Leafs if that shakes itself out and they end up playing against each other, which I know that's like not
Yeah,
that's old news. But let me ask you this question. We talked about their players. Is there a better coach in the NHL than John Cooper?
definitely not.
Is there a better guy once playoffs start to have behind your bench than John Cooper?
Definitely not. I mean, John Cooper's the longest tenured coach in the NHL right now. He's been winning for, what feels like a decade. Has it been 10 years since he took over? It has been, must be, right? Because they went to the Cup final in 2015. Yeah, he's been there for probably, I don't want to guess, but probably 12 years. Maybe we have someone in the chat fact check us on that. Also, we will take questions in the chat too. But yeah, John Cooper, far and away the best coach in the NHL. And it's the consistency, even when the guys are hurt. I mean, we talked about Kucherov before. Kucherov has missed a ton of regular season time and comes in the playoffs and then dominates. But like, you still have to coach those regular season games without your best player. And that's not something that's easy to do in the NHL, is win games without your top scorer and without your best player. So, that's a lot of credit to John Cooper and what he's been able to do for Tampa in the regular seasons and those years after winning Stanley Cups, keeping guys healthy, making sure everything's clicking the right way. I mean, you look at the Vegas Golden Knights right now. Sure, they win last night, but they're struggling right now with injuries and everything going on in that organization after winning the Stanley Cup last year. And not to get off topic on Tampa, but like, these are real life situations where, you have to deal with the cards that are dealt to you. And a lot of that goes to coaching when, those things happen. So yeah, John Cooper, I mean, maybe like you could throw in Rod Brindamore, but he hasn't won, so I like, that's the coach I feel like everyone
So
kind of goes
then
to.
you've got the best coach in the NHL. You've got the best player right now in the NHL in Kucherov. You've got Victor Hedman, he's the best defenseman in the NHL, right?
Mhm.
Or one of them, right? Obviously Kale McCarr. I mean, look, we're not debating but I'm just saying, like, You've got a Steven Stamkos who's playing for a contract, who's hungry. Braden Point never disappoints. Sorelli's been there, he's won. Sergachev's been there, he's won. They're going to try to bring in some depth. They have Tanner Jeannot. They gave up a lot to get him, but he's a good, solid player for them. I don't know, man. Like you're not in love with their roster, and I'm reeling off a lot of high end players with a lot of winning experience, and I just think that makes them dangerous. And watching that game against the Flyers last night, a team that has been incredibly structured and incredibly disciplined, although they've given up 18 goals in their last 3 games, which is very unlike them. I think that you know they pulled the Flyers out of their structure. They both had a game plan. And, I think the speed, the offensive creativity, the attention to detail that Tampa has pulled kind of the Flyers out of their game. And so, look, I think that's a team that's probably now trending in the wrong direction. They've lost 3 in a row. They've given up 18 goals. I don't think that they're I don't think that they're in trouble yet. I'm not ready to say that yet in Philadelphia, but certainly not a trend that you like to see.
And Olivia Cooper did just say that John Cooper has been in Tampa since March 2013. So thank you for that, because I couldn't figure out the time frame when he first got there. But you look at the Philadelphia Flyers. It's interesting because they have guys that are just bought in, right? And that's such a difference in the NHL. Like you see teams with the top end talent. You see teams, like we're talking about Tampa. We've talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs. We just talked about the New York Rangers before. When a team is bought in, does it matter the skill set in the NHL that you have? Like how far can it really take you is my question, Colby, because you know better than me. Like the NHL is the best in the world. It's the best players in the world. And I'm sure you need teams that have a ton of high-end skill. But when you have guys that are on the same page, like could a team like Philadelphia potentially even win a playoff round? Like, do you really believe that?
No, I don't. I don't think they can win a playoff round. I just don't. I don't think that they have the experience.
You
I
need a
think
game
once
breaker at some point, right?
I think once team it's look, Carolina hasn't won. They're bought in. Okay. They don't have a superstar. They're full of really good players, and they've got some, very good players, but they don't have that game breaking superstar. And I think that costs them in the playoffs every year. So I think, if that's the argument, then that's my argument back. Look at Carolina. So I think the Flyers have done a great job this year. I think they're going to continue to be competitive. I do think they'll have to make some moves. They do have to continue to look into the future. But ultimately, no, I don't see them as a team that's going to, make noise in the playoffs. They'll be a hard out. I don't think anybody will walk through them, but they will certainly be a hard out. And do I think they'll make the playoffs for sure? No, I don't. I don't see it as a guarantee that they're going to make the playoffs. I really don't. They'll fight tooth and nail, but I wouldn't be willing to guarantee it. Absolutely not.
And another player I just want to bring up that hasn't been talked about as much, and the Florida Panthers have been rolling as of late. A lot of talk's been Sam Reinhart. There's, an underappreciated guy is Gustav Forsling. A family friend, Gary Tucker, texts me every day, please mention Forsling. But Matthew Tkachuk, last 10 games, 8 goals, 10 assists, 18 points. We talked about the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you said, they ramp it up come playoff time. But I still think the Florida Panthers, like, we haven't really talked about the Battle of Florida the last couple of years. That's become one of the best rivalries in the NHL. The Florida Panthers, I'm taking them over the Tampa Bay Lightning, like any day of the week. Are you on the same page?
No, I wouldn't say any day of the week. I think that would be a great series.
In a 7-game series? Yeah, yeah. I didn't mean
I
like a regular
think,
season game, just to be clear. Yeah.
yeah, I think that would be a great series, and I still to this day have a very difficult time betting against Andrei Vasilevsky in a 7-game series. I just do. I've seen what goaltending can do for a team. I saw Tim Thomas do it in 2011, up close and personal. He made a really good team, really great, or a great team, elite. Goaltending can do that, and especially over the course of a series where you're seeing the same team night in and night out, you're game planning. There's all sorts of intricacies in the playoffs with systems and shutting things down and tendencies and this and that. So I hope we at some point get to see that battle for Florida in a playoff series again, especially now that it's tilted back in the Panthers' way. They've been phenomenal this year. I know people love Gustav Forsling. We've seen people kind of shit on us saying, oh, you don't watch the Panthers if you don't think Gustav Forsling is their best defenseman. I don't think that. Even at his best, he's still not capable as playing as well as some of the other players. I also think you have to remember that Montour and Ekblad were injured for a while. It can take a couple months to get your legs, to get your feet under you, to really feel good. And I think those guys will just continue to push and get better as things move along. But again, I go back to this goaltending. Vasilevsky versus Bob. I'm not saying the Florida Panthers aren't a better team. I just wonder, like, in that series, like, if we saw that, who you trusting more? And we've seen different versions of Bob over the last number of years, and we haven't really seen different versions of Vasilevsky. So I think that kind of leads us perfectly, Johnny, into our next discussion about goaltenders. And I know you sent me that clip yesterday, that was going around the internet about goaltending, and really are goaltenders not getting paid? Are they the new running backs of hockey? And it's something we probably don't necessarily agree on.
Well, it was Jeff Marek and Mike Kelly that were talking about it on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. They were talking about if goaltenders get paid enough, and Kevin Weeks actually almost about an hour ago said that the Chicago Blackhawks are planning on signing Peter Mrazek to a 2-year, north of $8 million contract, which is a pretty significant amount of money for a goaltender. Here's my thing. Alan Walsh, and you quote tweeted it, compared goalies to quarterbacks and to what was the other position in sports? Now I'm blanking on it. Running backs. And no, there was another sport that he brought in as well.
Relief pitchers.
Relief pitchers. That's what it was. It was baseball. Goalies, I would say they're more similar to pitchers than running backs or quarterbacks. Those guys play every game. Pitchers don't pitch every game. Goalies don't play every game. Goalies are asked to do a lot, certainly. Pitchers are asked to do a lot, certainly. But I don't think in any world a goaltender should be paid more than a top 4 defenseman. I think top 4 defense, and maybe you can cut me off there or you want to let me go. I don't know how you feel about that, but
you can bury yourself. Go ahead.
If you're a top 4 D-man in the NHL, you're playing every night. You're even sometimes doing a goaltender's job for him. You're blocking shots, sacrificing your body. You're asked, and I'm not discrediting the goaltender position, but I think at times goalies are bailed out a little bit more than maybe an 82-game player, because if a goalie lets in 3 goals in the first period, you get pulled. Like, you don't really see NHL players get benched that often, where if you're having a bad night, you still got to go out there and play. Like a goaltender, if you're not on your best game, a coach can read that and make a change, where to me, it's a little bit different. But when you have an elite goalie, yes, the Connor Hellebucks of the world, I think his $8.5 million contract is a perfect number. Bobrovsky's number is too high for what he's done in his career under that contract. Yes, he took that team to the Stanley Cup final last year, but has he been worth, the double-digit number? Probably not. I think 8.5 for a guy like Hellebuck is perfect. I'm trying to think of other goalies like, Shesterkin. If Shesterkin was making 8.5 right now, I think people would have something to say about it. That's for sure. I think goalie is obviously important, but a team is only as good as their blue line. The blue line's more important.
I listen, I'm all about building from the blue line. I think the only way to win a Stanley Cup is to truly build in the blue line. But let me ask you this question, Johnny. Who are the top 4 defensemen on the New York Rangers? Give me them. List 1 through 4.
Jacob Trouba, Keandre Miller, in no order.
No, I want them in order. It's important that you give it in order.
Okay. To me, it's Adam Fox. I think Jacob Trouba is actually 2. He's been playing great this year. Then I'd say Ryan Lindgren right now, and then Keandre Miller.
Okay, so you're sitting here and you're going to tell me your number 4 defenseman is more important than a goaltender. I mean, that's where you lost me on this a little bit, because look, I agree you have to build your back end, but I also think look, we don't know enough about Adin Hill yet. We just don't. Okay, we don't know.
He was great last night. He was great last night.
I know, but I'm just saying, is he going to be that? I don't know. Look at the previous Stanley Cups. Vasilevsky, okay? He's in the Stanley Cup how many times? He's an elite goaltender. All right, look at what Winnipeg is doing this year with an elite goaltender. Look at what Vancouver is doing this year with an elite goaltender, or a goaltender who's knocking on the door of being elite, at least. You know what I mean? With Thatcher Demko. I think the reason that this is coming up is because there's not enough really good goaltenders, just like quarterbacks in the NFL. There's 10 teams in the NFL that know who their quarterback are going to be every day. And then everybody else is still kind of trying to figure it out or kind of looking around. Like, how many teams in the NHL that are even doing well right now are still would be open to landing a big time goalie? Probably a lot of them, because there's only really 10 of those guys that exist in the NHL. And I think that's why we're hearing this new crowd of, well, we don't need to pay goaltenders. We don't, like, that's because they don't exist. Not because they don't, not because that, they're not needed, because the best teams in the NHL, like right now, who are the best teams in the NHL right now? Like, let's talk about Boston for a second. Like, to me, Jeremy Swayman is playing like an elite goaltender. He really is. Every single night he's playing elite, and his team is following that. The Tampa Bay Lightning are 6-1-0 in their last 7, and we read Vasilevsky's numbers in those games, and his numbers are elite, and he's back to being elite. Okay.
You think those numbers are elite?
Well, I mean, listen, if you watched him play last night and you saw some of the saves that he made, like, he's an elite goaltender, man. Listen, we're not arguing about Andrei Vasilevsky. Like, the guy's elite. I'm sorry. We're not arguing about it.
No. I'm just saying the last 10 years, I don't think he's been elite the last.
I'm just saying he's an elite goaltender. He's got 2 cups to his name. He's got a cup finals appearances. Bob stood on his head last year after Alex Lyon, kind of stumbled a little bit after he started. And then he stood on his head and he got through, but then he got outdueled by Adin Hill in the cup finals. So show me a team that's going to win a Stanley Cup without great goaltending. Okay. It doesn't happen.
I can.
Who?
Colorado Avalanche. Darcy Kemper was not, what?
Okay.
You think
he
was elite? He was not elite the year they won the Stanley Cup.
Okay. Yeah, that's one. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it doesn't happen often, but it's starting to trend more in that.
Who did they beat that year? Do you remember? That was the year against it. Okay.
Did you not know? Were you testing me or what?
No, I couldn't remember who they beat that year.
Okay. I thought that was like a mental.
No,
I thought that was like a mental gymnastics kind of question.
No. I'm just saying I couldn't remember it. Like, we're talking about all these seasons here. I couldn't remember who they beat.
Yeah, no, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, which, and it doesn't happen all the time, but when you have the team in front of you that can score goals, that can defend, and that can skate, like, you just need the guy to make the saves. You don't need the guy that's going to stand.
There's teams that make goaltenders look better the way that they defend. I think the way Vegas defends and does a good job of keeping things around the perimeter. I don't think they give up a lot of grade A when they're playing very well. I think they back pressure really well. I think that allows their high-end defensive core to kind of stay up and defend rushes better. So, look, the eye test will continue to tell me that it's very difficult to win in the NHL without really good goaltending. The game has gotten looser. The game has gotten more about offense. Teams are trying to outscore their problems. Teams are sniffing and cheating for offense all the time. So I'm not ready to jump ship. I think the best way to win in the NHL is with super elite goaltending. That's my opinion. I think D in goaltending will take you farther than anything. And listen, just ask the Toronto Maple Leafs who continue to not, pay goaltending, continue to not pay a D-core, and they continue to sink everything into their forward group, and they continue to lose.
Well, first you said goaltending, then you said D and goaltending. So which one is more important? Like, would you rather build the blue line, or would you rather have the elite goalie? Like which one, if you're going to a 7-game series, like, which are you taking?
Well, why can't you have D and goaltending?
Well, let's think of like let me see, like, who's an average goalie right now? Let's see. Vitek Vanacek, perfect example. He's he's a little below average right now. I'd say he's having a rough year. But
you're not winning a Stanley Cup with him. You're not winning a Stanley Cup with him. Where are you winning a Stanley Cup with Vitek Vanacek? What team?
I'm trying to think of a team. I'm trying to put him in. I mean, you plug and play him with Colorado, mate. Like, maybe Colorado's. No. I mean, they're different.
I agree, they're different offensively, but like, is he going to bail them out over the course of 7 games? It's not going to happen. Adin Hill bailed Vegas out when he needed to throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs when he played. I know there was some carousel early, but
Mhm.
You need goaltenders that rise up to the moment. You do. And maybe it's two guys sometimes, and we've seen that in the playoffs more in the last couple of years. So I think goaltending is very important, and show me a
I'm
team that
not
is
saying
going to
it's not
win with
important.
bad goaltending. Okay, you gave me the one with Colorado with
Mhm.
Francouz and I'm
Kemper.
drawing a blank, and
Yeah.
Kemper. Yeah, and so, but ultimately, yeah, I think this whole we don't need goaltending to win. Let's see how it works out. I disagree with it. Ask Carolina how they feel about that right now. I mean,
Yeah.
ask teams that aren't getting saves how they feel. Ask Toronto how they feel about that.
I also found John Tortorella's comment last week very interesting. I don't know if you caught that about the goaltenders. I think we talked about it on the phone, but Torch was asked like, what has changed so much, over the last couple of years with goalies? Because Marty Brodeur played like 78 games in a year. He played 70 plus games in a season a bunch of times, and Tortorella basically came out and said, "We're teaching our goaltenders like to not toughen through things, and
He was
maybe."
talking about all players. We're teaching athletes to be tired.
Yeah.
That's literally what he said. We're teaching athletes to be tired. I mean, that's exactly what he said. He was talking about goaltending, but then he made it a
Mhm.
bigger thing. He said, "We are teaching athletes to be tired, and that's why I push my players through things because it helps them develop a skin." So I agree. I totally agree with that. I coach young kids. I work with junior age players all the way down to U16s and U15s and U14s with the New Jersey Titans, and I do think some of that stuff has crept in, and I do think guys are more, they're quicker sometimes to say and talk about that kind of thing. Where when we were coming through youth stuff, like it was go back out there and suck it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a different mindset. It's a change in things. So I think we could probably yell and scream about goaltending all day. I think at the end of the year, we'll visit it as we get closer to the playoffs, and we'll see which goalies are going to step up and answer the bell, and which aren't. And I do believe the team standing at the end will be standing with really good goaltending.
Yep. Well said, Colby. And before we do finish up today's show, we want to shout out our friend Frank Saravalli, who spoke with Seth Jarvis of the Carolina Hurricanes on his show, Frankly Speaking. So stay tuned for that. That'll come out today. A great conversation with Seth Jarvis, who's been a phenomenal player for the Carolina Hurricanes, has quite the personality as well. He's been making his rounds in the media, so he's certainly an interesting guy to hear from. And you don't really see a lot of the Carolina Hurricanes do media stuff, so I'm curious to tune into that one. I mean, they've been knocking on the door here for the past couple years. So that should be a fun conversation to tune into.
Wondering if you
Yeah,
could give me a word to describe what this Carolina Hurricanes season has been like to this point.
Adversity, I think, would be a good one. We've been through a lot of ups and downs so far. We're kind of finally figured it out and coming up on the upswing, but we had a tough little go there for a while.
So Rod Brindamore and company have set the bar really high in terms of expectations for this team, but for the last couple regular seasons, it's kind of mostly been smooth sailing. You mentioned the adversity that you guys got a taste of, especially the first couple months of the season. How do you think you guys handled that?
I mean, it's been tough. I think, like you said, it's been smooth sailing. So for me, since I've been here, we've been always really good in the regular season. Never really had many hiccups. So this is new for me. So it's a learning experience. It's not that I've never really been on a team where I've lost as much as we did for that short amount of time. So it was tough. It was fun. It was hard. You learned a lot about yourself, learned a lot about the group you have, and I think we came out a lot better for it. I think it's obviously better to go through that kind of stuff earlier in the season than later. But I think it made us stronger and brought us closer together as a group.
Do you think there's been a difference in the last couple weeks? Is it as simple as, obviously there's a team effort, but you get some saves as well that might have helped put you guys in a different direction? Or do you think you're playing the same? What's changed?
I think it's more desperation. I think you lose all those games. Our division's so tight, the league's so good that everything kind of switches so quickly that we kind of fall behind the eight ball a little bit. So it's been a whole lot of desperation to kind of claw our way back into where we are now. And I think as long as we don't lose that, I'm pretty sure we'll be all right to finish it out.
the audio for that show will drop today wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to see the entire interview, video included, that'll be on the DFO YouTube page tomorrow. under the Frankly Speaking show. Frank obviously does such a great job with those interviews, and Seth Jarvis, a guy like you said, he generally has some pretty good personality. I know when these guys get into these one-on-one situations, a lot of them kind of shut it down a little bit, and they don't want to show any too much personality because they're worried, they're going to get shit from their teammates. I think we kind of see that time and time again, Johnny. So let's talk about tonight. A couple of games, quite a few actually, a couple of marquee games. I think we'll probably have our eyes on tonight. I think anytime the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing hockey right now, I think a lot of people are tuning in. Samsonov is going to get the start again. Played very well the other night. I'm sure Leafs Nation is, we're all set now back on this run to the Cup now that Samsonov got that one really good start in, and they've got him and Martin Jones. I think Ryan Reeves is probably going to come back into the lineup. There's been a lot of talk about him. Is he injured? Is he not injured? Were they holding him out? It's kind of interesting to see how that whole media swirl happened, Johnny. But, a couple other good ones tonight as well. Boston, Carolina. We just heard from Seth Jarvis there on that snippet from Frankly Speaking. The Bruins have become a little bit of a juggernaut as of late. So this is certainly going to be a test of will between Boston and Carolina.
Yeah, a lot of games to watch. I'll probably be tuned into the TNT game as well, that Boston Carolina game, and then the Blackhawks Kraken. Frank Saravalli, our good friend, did just announce that the Blackhawks did extend Peter Mrazek 2 years, $4.25 million per year. So congrats to Peter Mrazek on the extension. And those are the games I'll probably be watching. I'm not going to watch the Maple Leafs game because I don't want to be dealing with our producer Vic all night. So I'll probably shut my phone off for that one. But Bruins Carolina should be a good one, a big game for both teams. And a lot to look forward to tonight. So that's all I really got today, Colby. Anything you want to finish off with here for today's show?
Nope. I think we covered a lot today. Once again, we apologize about the Shane Pinto thing. Obviously, I think we're all disappointed we couldn't make that one work out. We will try to get him back on the show sooner than later. Like we said, he is Johnny's good buddy. They're both Long Island boys, and we will make that happen for you at some point. So stay tuned, stay with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe the Daily Faceoff YouTube page. They're turning out tons and tons of content between this show, the Daily Faceoff live every day at noon, which features Frank Saravalli and Tyler Yaremchuk. There's podcasts. There's certainly a lot of content to digest. So we appreciate you sticking with us today, and we will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.